Hey guys, I was just fortunate enough to finish second in the last BFL on Okeechobee out of the north end. Weighed in 22 pounds, 13 ounces. Doesn't sound like much weight for the lake, but I'll tell you what, the way it's fishing right now and the amount of pressure and the amount of beating up that it's been taking, 22 pounds is a pretty solid bag. Especially with the fact I think my big fish was right around 6 pounds, so we didn't really have any giants, but just caught a lot of solid square fat north end fish, which was pretty sweet, man. I was pretty jacked up. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't an easy path to get there. I'm gonna kind of frame up some of the patterns and baits that I use going in and what I think some of the key factors that really made it happen out there. But before we get to that, I really got to tell you what happened that really kind of made the day so challenging, and it had nothing to do with the fishing. I borrowed a boat for fishing this thing, and ran into some issues the day before with it starting because we had some really cold weather. And the day of the tournament, she wouldn't crank, man. We ended up killing the cranking battery and didn't get started fishing until 10 in the morning. Stayed in the river and fished around a little bit, but never got to my first spot until we were able to jump the motor around 9:40 or so, and got to that first spot around 10. So needless to say, on the inside I was freaking out, but I managed to kind of keep my cool, make a plan, take some action on it, and move forward. And in the end, I was able to get out to my fish, slow down, keep my head on straight, and get to fishing. And that was huge. Ironically though, that wasn't the end of our troubles. Thought I had about 18-19 pounds by the end of the day, and we were on our way in with about 15 minutes to go. I figured we were about a mile or two out, which kind of gave us a good cushion of time. I didn't want any issues. And lo and behold, I hear this whoo from the back of the boat as we're running on plane, and I spun a hub on the motor. So we're dead in the water. I'm in a borrowed boat, and I don't know if there's a new prop in there, I have no idea what to do. What turned out though, it's so funny because if one thing wouldn't have happened that day, I would have never weighed in those fish. I would have never caught them. It's funny how chance, fate, whatever you want to call it, has a way of kind of playing itself out. There was a guy named Edwin who was also fishing the BFL, him and his co-angler. Their weigh-in was about 30 minutes after ours. We flagged him down. He was about 200 yards away. Edwin drove like a wild man to get me and our fish in. My co-angler too, she was nice enough, her name's Linda, to go ahead and stay out with the boat and send our fish in. It was just, you know, a lot of things came together to kind of make it happen. I also got to send a quick shout out to Thaddeus Reagan. He ended up towing in the boat for us, and you know, Jim Finley borrowed me the boat. If none of these things would have happened, it's funny, all these factors, all these good actions by people and these nice things that people did sort of all came together with just with a positive outcome. And there was a lot of adversity that we faced going out there. But that's kind of the backstory. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the fun stuff. So when it came down to it, the fishing was pretty tough out there. I focused on mats, flipping mats, punching mats. The bite was definitely not what it was a month ago, but there's definitely fish coming in. One of the big factors to getting those fish in was my Powell Endurance 795. This is actually an Alabama rig rod, but I'm using it to flip mats. It is the best rod, I think, for getting down deep in the mats, but at the same time keeping a certain level of sensitivity for the way these finicky fish are biting. They've been really tapping at the bait, or even just like dead holding the bait, which makes it really difficult to feel for them there, and you can miss a lot of bites if you're not paying, you know, strong attention to the details. But this Endurance 795 is seriously sweet. I had to pump a lot of these fish out, kind of, you know, lollipop the bait a little bit. I also had to suspend the bait at points. Got very few, you know, bites on the drop. Most of my bites came kind of like worm flipping the bait, you know, really working it out of there. One of the big keys too was targeting isolated floating mats. My biggest fish came from isolated floating mats that were situated in hydrilla as well as cane heads. And really saying, hey, that's where the big fish are going to be. I'm not going to spend my time getting too open or too wide with the pattern and targeting other things. I knew the big fish would be in these isolated mats. I wouldn't get bites out of all of them, but I needed to treat them all equally. Pump the bait, suspend the bait, fish super slow. There were times when I actually would put the power pole down and not move for 5 or 10 minutes and just pitch every isolated speck in front of me. It's another reason why this rod came in so handy. At some points I was pitching 20 feet away through totally thick cover, and I would hook a fish 20 feet out in an isolated mat, and this rod never gave me an issue dragging 4s and 5s in across all kinds of junk. It really played out for me. I love that rod, and when it comes to mat flipping, it is the rod to be using. But let's talk about baits real quick too, because I really think they were key. There were 2 baits that really made it happen for me. One is the D&M Custom Baits Big Mama. It's a beaver style bait. It's a little more compact, but for some reason they love it out there. They eat it to death. The other bait was the new Gambler Why Not. This bait is super compact. I actually was biting the head off of it to make it a little more smaller, a little more bite-sized presentation. Big fish still loved it, and it slips right through the mats just right. But these 2 baits, I got a ton of confidence in them, and they really made it happen. I was getting bites where other guys were just not, because they were moving on through and leaving on out. So a combination of slowing down and really knowing that these bites were going to elicit the strikes that I was looking for was a big factor. The other thing to note too is I was using 2 different weight setups. I had a 1.75 tungsten and then a Strike King Hack Attack hook, 4/0 or 5/0, it depended on the bait. And I was also running what actually became the mainstay for the day, a Rains 1.5 ounce tungsten, once again with a Hack Attack hook. That Rains 1.5 is a smaller 1.5 than what your average tungsten weight is, and I think it really played a large role in getting through some of those same mats that I had needed the 1.75 to get through, but that compact presentation really slipped through just as easily. And with the finicky bites that we were getting, taking a 1/4 ounce off that weight and running that 1.5, I think really played a role in getting some extra bites. And on days when it's not taking that much weight to win or that much weight to cash a check, you know, every bite counts, and getting a few extra bites in a decent size is really going to go a long way. It's going to bump you up a couple $100. But those were really the key baits: D&M Custom Baits Big Mama, and then that new Gambler Why Not. They're killer baits. Linking it up with that Powell 795 to make sure I was feeling every bite, whether it was a dead stick bite or whether it was just a little tick, or, you know, they were real subtle. But everything came together, and you know, that's what happens when things go right. We turned a lot of negatives into positives, had a lot of people really help me out, and went out there with the right attitude, the right equipment, and made it happen. So that's how 22 pounds, 13 ounces, and a 2nd place got knocked off in this last BFL. I hope this kind of helps you out, guys, and we'll see you out there on the water.